Have you ever looked at someone and wondered how they achieve financial peace, while another person, earning the exact same salary, is constantly drowning in stress and debt? The answer isn't found on a spreadsheet or in a textbook. It's hidden in the last place most people look, their own mind. Welcome to a journey into the psychology of money by Morgan Housel, a book that fundamentally rewires your understanding of wealth. For decades, we've been taught that money is a math problem. We've been told to focus on interest rates, economic forecasts, and complex investment strategies. But Housel reveals a groundbreaking truth. Personal finance has very little to do with how smart you are, and a whole lot to do with how you behave. The real battle isn't fought in the stock market, it's fought in the mirror. Money isn't about numbers. It's a story we tell ourselves. It's about the emotions that hijack our decisions when we're feeling greedy, fearful, or insecure. The gap between getting rich and staying wealthy, between a life of freedom and a life of anxiety, is carved out by psychology, not intelligence. Think about the last financial choice you made. Was it at a desk, with a calculator and a clear head? Or was it late at night, influenced by a conversation with a friend, an advertisement you saw, or the lingering stress from a tough day at work? We don't make money decisions in a vacuum. We make them in the messy, emotional, and often irrational theater of real life. This is not a guide on what stocks to pick. It's a guide on how to think. It's about cultivating the timeless behaviors that build lasting wealth, regardless of what the market is doing. It's about understanding that the stories you believe, the biases you carry, and your relationship with risk will determine your financial destiny far more than the numbers on your paycheck. In the next few minutes, we will unpack life-altering lessons. You will discover why true wealth is invisible, why patience is your greatest superpower, and why the most important financial skill has nothing to do with making money. We'll explore stories of janitors who retired as secret millionaires, and executives who lost everything, not because of bad luck, but because of bad psychology. If you've ever felt like you're running on a financial hamster wheel, working harder but getting nowhere, this video is your wake-up call. Prepare to have your most fundamental beliefs about money challenged, reshaped, and reborn. Because from this moment on, you will never see wealth the same way again. Chapter 1. No one's crazy when it comes to money. Your personal experience is a powerful, persuasive, and often deceptive teacher. Morgan Housel's first lesson is a profound act of empathy. No one is crazy. The financial decisions that look insane to you make perfect sense to the person making them. Why? Because we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are. Our financial worldview is not shaped by textbooks or economic theory, but by the unique, emotionally charged experiences of our lives. Imagine someone who grew up in extreme poverty, watching their parents struggle for every meal. To them, the stock market might seem like a reckless casino. Hoarding cash under a mattress isn't irrational. It's a survival instinct, forged in the fires of scarcity. They aren't being bad with money. They are acting on a deeply ingrained lesson that the system is fragile and security is paramount. Now, consider someone whose parents were successful entrepreneurs during an economic boom. They might view debt as a tool for opportunity, and risk-taking as the only path to success. Their comfort with leverage isn't a sign of foolishness. It's a reflection of a world where bold moves were always rewarded. Neither person is crazy. Both are simply navigating their financial lives using a map drawn from a tiny sliver of history, their own. What you've personally witnessed is infinitely more compelling than what you've read in a book. The emotional scars of watching your family lose their home in a recession will always outweigh a Harvard professor's lecture on long-term market returns. Data and statistics can inform our intellect, but they rarely have the power to override the visceral lessons of our lived experience. This is a crucial realization. Before you judge another person's spending habits, or even your own, you must first acknowledge the invisible histories that are pulling the strings. We are all products of different generations, cultures, and family narratives around money. There is no single, universally correct financial perspective. Someone who buys lottery tickets isn't necessarily ignorant of the odds. They might just see it as their only shot at a dream, a small price for a glimmer of hope. Understanding this principle is liberating. It allows you to have compassion for yourself and others. You aren't broken or incompetent. You are simply shaped. And once you recognize the stories that have shaped you, once you can see that your behavior is rooted in memory, not objective analysis, you gain the power to write a new one. The first step toward financial wisdom isn't learning a new strategy. It's understanding the origins of your own financial mind. Chapter 2. Luck and Risk. In our quest for success, we worship at the altar of effort and strategy. We create narratives of brilliant founders and genius investors who bent the world to their will through sheer force of intellect. But Housel pulls back the curtain on a truth we are deeply uncomfortable with. Luck and risk are the silent, inseparable twins that shape our financial outcomes far more than we dare to admit. For every success story, there is an equally compelling story of failure, and the line between them is often terrifyingly thin. Consider the story of Bill Gates. His genius is undeniable, but his success was launched from a platform of incredible luck. In 1968, Lakeside School in Seattle was one of the only high schools in the world with a computer. The odds of a teenage boy attending that specific school at that specific time were astronomical. This wasn't just an advantage, it was a cosmic lottery ticket. But the story has a shadow. Gates had a close friend, Kent Evans, who was equally brilliant and shared his passion for computers. They were destined to be business partners. Tragically, Kent died in a mountaineering accident before graduating. Same ambition, same school, same incredible opportunity. One was touched by unimaginable luck, the other by catastrophic risk. This is the central paradox. Luck and risk are two sides of the same coin. They are the reality that not all success is earned through hard work, and not all poverty is the result of laziness. When we look at someone who has achieved great wealth, we tend to focus on their visible actions, their talent, their grit, their decisions. We conveniently ignore the invisible tailwinds of luck that propelled them forward, like being born in the right country, at the right time, to the right parents. Conversely, when we see someone struggling, it's easy to attribute their failure to poor choices or a lack of effort. We don't see the unseen headwinds of risk they faced, the unexpected illness, the business partner who cheated them, the industry that collapsed overnight. Failure is not always a report card on a person's character. What does this mean for us? It means we must practice humility in victory and compassion in defeat. When you succeed, recognize that your hard work was likely amplified by forces beyond your control. This doesn't diminish your accomplishment. It grounds you in reality and protects you from the hubris that so often precedes a fall. When you see others fail, resist the urge to pass swift judgment. You don't know the full story of the risks they encountered. Focus less on studying the specific actions of hyper-successful individuals because their outlier success is often impossible to replicate. Instead, study the broad patterns of success and failure. You'll find that successful people, regardless of luck, often share common traits like discipline, resilience, and a respect for risk. Acknowledge luck, but don't rely on it. Fear risk and build a margin of safety to protect yourself from it. Because in the end, success isn't just about winning. It's about being able to stay in the game long enough for luck to find you. Chapter 3. Never Enough. In the world of finance, there is a psychological disease more destructive than any market crash. The disease of more. It's the relentless pursuit of a finish line that constantly moves, a hunger that grows with every meal. Housel delivers a chilling warning. The inability to recognize when you have enough is a surefire path to losing everything you have, and everything you could have had. This chapter isn't about setting goals. It's about the danger of never letting them rest. To illustrate this, Housel doesn't point to a struggling gambler, but to men who had already won the game. Consider the case of Rajat Gupta. He was the former CEO of McKinsey, one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the world, and sat on the board of Goldman Sachs. His net worth was estimated at over $100 million. By any sane measure, he had more than enough. But it wasn't enough for him. Driven by a desire to be a billionaire, to ascend to the highest echelons of wealth, he engaged in insider trading. The result? He was convicted, sent to prison, and his reputation was shattered forever. He risked everything he had and needed for something he didn't have and didn't need. This isn't a rare story. It's a timeless human tragedy. The problem is that social comparison is a battle that can never be won. The moment you achieve a new level of wealth, you simply start looking at the people on the next rung of the ladder. A millionaire envies the decamillionaire, who envies the billionaire. It's a treadmill fueled by ego, and it has no off switch. Chasing more for the sake of more is a hollow pursuit, because the feeling of satisfaction it promises is always just over the horizon. This is where we must distinguish between being rich and being wealthy. Being rich is about your current income. It's visible, loud, and often fleeting. It's the Lamborghini in the driveway and the designer watch on the wrist. But being wealthy is quiet. It's the money you haven't spent. Wealth is the assets in your portfolio providing you with freedom, options, and security. Wealth is the ability to wake up one morning and decide to change your life without asking for anyone's permission. Many rich people have very little wealth because their high incomes are matched by even higher expenses in a desperate attempt to signal their status. The hardest financial skill in the world is getting the goalpost to stop moving. It requires introspection, not a spreadsheet. You must ask yourself, what is the purpose of my money? Is it to fund a life of freedom, time with family, and meaningful work? Or is it to impress people who, frankly, aren't paying that much attention to you anyway? Define your enough. Write it down. It might be a specific number, but it's more likely a lifestyle. The ability to not worry about bills, to work on your own terms, to handle an emergency without panic. Once you know you're enough, you can protect it fiercely. You can say no to reckless risks and the siren song of social comparison. Because true wealth isn't about having the most. It's about needing the least. Chapter 4. Confounding Compounding. We are naturally drawn to stories of dramatic, explosive success. The overnight millionaire, the stock that went to the moon. But Morgan Housel reveals that the real engine of wealth creation is far less dramatic. It's a force so slow and quiet that it's almost invisible in the short term, yet so powerful over the long term that it can feel like magic. This force is compounding, and our failure to grasp its counterintuitive nature is one of the biggest obstacles to building wealth. The ultimate case study is Warren Buffett. His name is synonymous with investing genius, and for good reason. But Housel argues that the key to his staggering fortune isn't just that he's a great investor. It's that he has been a great investor for an incredibly long time. Buffett started seriously investing when he was just 10 years old. He is now in his 90s. That is over 3/4 of a century of his money working for him. Here is the mind-bending statistic. Over 95% of Warren Buffett's net worth was earned after his 65th birthday. His skill was consistent for decades, but the results were not. They were backloaded. For the first 50 years of his investing life, he accumulated a fortune. In the last 25 years, the magic of compounding took over and created something astronomical. His real secret wasn't picking the perfect stocks. It was his longevity. This is where our brains fail us. We think in linear terms. If I work 10% harder, I expect a 10% better result. If I save for 10 years, I expect to have 10 times my annual savings. But compounding doesn't work that way. It works exponentially. It's like a snowball rolling down a very long hill. For the first part of its journey, it seems to grow very slowly. But as it picks up more snow, its surface area expands, allowing it to pick up even more snow, faster and faster, until it becomes an unstoppable avalanche. The implications are profound. Good investing isn't about earning the absolute highest returns, because chasing those often involves taking risks that can wipe you out. It's about earning pretty good returns that you can stick with for the longest possible period of time. Time is the most powerful force in investing. It is the oxygen that compounding needs to breathe. The problem is that we are wired for action and excitement. We get impatient. We see a new hot investment and feel the urge to jump on it, interrupting the quiet work of compounding. We panic during a market downturn and sell, breaking the chain of growth. But the greatest returns are often realized by those who do the least. The person who sets up a sensible, diversified portfolio and then has the discipline to largely ignore it for decades will almost certainly outperform the hyperactive trader who is constantly chasing the next big thing. Your takeaway should be this. You don't need to be a genius to build significant wealth. You don't need a massive income. What you need, more than anything, is patience. Start as early as you can, save consistently, and let time do the heavy lifting. The power of compounding is not intuitive. It is not exciting, but it is the most reliable path to financial freedom ever discovered. Chapter 5. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. In the financial arena, we celebrate the victors of the offense. We idolize the entrepreneurs who built empires from nothing, and the investors who made audacious bets that paid off handsomely. Getting wealthy is a story of boldness, optimism, and risk-taking. But Housel makes a critical distinction. The skills that get you wealthy are the polar opposite of the skills that keep you wealthy. Offense may win you the game, but only defense can keep you in it for a lifetime. Getting money requires you to take risks. It requires you to be optimistic about the future and confident enough to put capital on the line. But staying wealthy is a different beast entirely. It requires humility and a healthy dose of paranoia. It's about recognizing that the same risk-taking that made you successful could be the very thing that brings you back to zero. History is littered with the ghosts of people who made fortunes and then lost them. Jesse Livermore, the brilliant stock trader, or MC Hammer, the music icon. They were masters of accumulation, but novices at preservation. Staying wealthy is about survival. It's about ensuring you can weather the inevitable storms of life. The market crashes, the recessions, the personal emergencies. It's about avoiding the single points of failure that can wipe you out. Housel argues that the mindset for survival is built on a powerful trio of traits: frugality, paranoia, and humility. First, frugality. This isn't about being cheap. It's about understanding that wealth is the gap between your ego and your income. The money you don't spend is far more valuable than the money you earn because it buys you resilience. Every dollar you save is a piece of your future freedom. Living below your means creates a buffer that protects you when things go wrong and gives you the flexibility to seize opportunities when they arise. Wealth isn't the car you drive. It's the money you didn't spend on the car. Second, paranoia. In everyday life, this sounds like a negative trait. In finance, it's a superpower. It's the constant awareness that the future is uncertain and that the good times won't last forever. A paranoid investor prepares for the worst. They have cash reserves. They diversify their assets. They don't overleverage. When chaos inevitably arrives, they aren't forced to panic sell at the worst possible time. They can survive and even thrive because they anticipated the storm. Finally, humility. This is the understanding that your success was not entirely your own doing. Luck played a part. You don't know everything, and the world can change in ways you can't predict. Humility prevents you from becoming overconfident. It stops you from taking that one giant, reckless risk that you believe can't possibly fail. It reminds you that the game is long and the goal is not to win in a single year, but to stay in the game for many decades. Getting wealthy is a sprint. Staying wealthy is a marathon. The former is exciting and makes headlines. The latter is often boring, methodical, and invisible. If you want to build wealth that lasts for generations, you must learn to master both games. Celebrate your offensive wins, but never, ever forget to play great defense. Chapter 6. Tails, you win. In our search for patterns of success, we tend to focus on averages. The average return of the stock market, the average performance of a CEO. But Housel reveals a startling truth that dismantles this way of thinking. In many areas of life, and especially in finance, a tiny handful of events are responsible for the vast majority of the results. These are tail events, the extreme outliers that defy all averages. Understanding their power is the key to understanding how the world really works. In a normal distribution, or a bell curve, most events cluster around the middle, and extremes are rare. But in finance, the tails, the far ends of the curve, wag the dog. The entire outcome is often determined by a few extraordinary successes or a few catastrophic failures. Let's look at the world of venture capital. A venture capital firm might invest in 50 different startups. By normal standards, if 25 succeed and 25 fail, that's a good track record. But that's not how it works. In reality, perhaps 40 of those companies will fail or return negligible profits. Maybe 5 will do okay. And 1 or 2 will become the next Google or Uber, generating returns so massive that they pay for all the other failures combined and then some. The entire success of the fund rests on just a couple of tail event winners. This isn't limited to startups. Think of the art market. The vast majority of paintings will never appreciate in value. But the handful of works by Picasso or Da Vinci are so astronomically valuable that they account for a huge percentage of the entire market's worth. The same is true for your own investment portfolio. Over your lifetime, you may own dozens of stocks or funds. It is highly likely that the bulk of your total returns will come from just a few of your best performers. Warren Buffett has owned hundreds of stocks, but a small number, like his investments in Coca-Cola, American Express, and Apple, are responsible for the lion's share of Berkshire Hathaway's success. This concept has enormous psychological implications. First, it means that it's okay to be wrong and have failures. You don't need to hit a home run with every investment. You can have a portfolio full of duds and still end up incredibly wealthy, as long as you have 1 or 2 massive winners. The mistake isn't picking a losing stock. The mistake is selling a winning stock too early, cutting off its potential to become a true tail event. Second, it highlights the importance of endurance. You cannot predict which of your investments will be the big winner. The only way to capture the magic of the tails is to stay in the game. You need to be diversified enough and have a long enough time horizon to give these rare events a chance to occur. The person who panics and sells during a downturn might be getting rid of the very asset that was destined to deliver 100 times returns. So stop judging your financial performance based on averages. Success isn't about being right all the time. It's about positioning yourself in a way that allows you to survive the inevitable small losses while giving you exposure to the rare, life-changing gains. Give yourself permission to make mistakes. Focus on longevity, because in the game of investing, you don't need a high batting average. You just need to make sure that when a tail event lands in your favor, you are there to catch it. Chapter 7. Freedom. What is money for? We spend our entire lives chasing it, working for it, and worrying about it. We are told that the goal is to accumulate more of it to buy bigger houses, faster cars, and more luxurious experiences. But Housel argues that we have been sold a lie. The things that money can buy are often hollow substitutes for what it can truly provide. The ultimate, highest form of wealth is not a physical object. It is the unwavering control over your own time. The real value of money is freedom. It's the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. That doesn't mean you have to be idle. It means you have the choice. You can choose to work on a project you love without caring about the paycheck. You can choose to spend the day with your children. You can choose to take a spontaneous trip, learn a new skill, or simply read a book. This autonomy, this ownership of your own life, is the most precious commodity in the world, and it is what money, at its best, can purchase. A 2010 study asked nearly 500,000 Americans to rate their daily happiness. It found that while higher incomes did correlate with higher happiness, the effect plateaued significantly around an annual income of $75,000, a figure that would be higher today due to inflation. Beyond that point, more money didn't bring much more day-to-day joy. However, a separate study from the University of Michigan found that having control over your life was a more dependable predictor of happiness than any other factor. People with more autonomy reported higher levels of well-being, regardless of their income. This reveals a profound disconnect. Many people, especially high earners in demanding professions like corporate law or investment banking, sacrifice their freedom for a bigger paycheck. They work grueling hours, giving up control over their time in exchange for money they believe will make them happy. But they have it backward. They are trading away the very thing that is most correlated with happiness, autonomy, for something that has diminishing returns. They have a high income, but they are not wealthy in the way that matters most. This redefines the goal of saving and investing. You are not just building a pile of money. You are building a freedom fund. Every dollar you save is a piece of your future that you are buying back from a boss, a client, or a financial obligation. Having 6 months of living expenses saved isn't just a safety net. It's the power to walk away from a toxic job. Having a robust retirement account isn't about being able to afford a yacht. It's about being able to retire when you want to, not when you have to. So when you think about your financial goals, don't just picture a number. Picture a day. What would your ideal day look like if you had complete control over your time? What would you do? Who would you spend it with? That vision is the true target. Use money as a tool to engineer a life with more of those days. Because owning a fancy car is nice, but nothing compares to the feeling of owning your own time. That is real wealth. Chapter 8. Man in the Car Paradox. We are social creatures, hardwired to seek the respect and admiration of our peers. A primary way we try to earn this is through consumption. We buy the flashy car, the oversized house, and the expensive watch, believing that these possessions will broadcast our success and make others think highly of us. But Housel introduces a simple, powerful paradox that shatters this illusion. When we see someone with an impressive possession, we rarely think about the person. We think about ourselves. This is the man in the car paradox. Imagine you see a brand new Ferrari roar past you on the street. Your immediate thought is likely not, wow, the driver of that car must be a cool, successful, and admirable person. Instead, you think, wow, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool and successful. The car is a symbol, but it's a symbol you use to construct a fantasy about your own life, not to admire the life of the driver. The driver is an anonymous vessel for your own aspirations. This is a profound and humbling realization. We work for years, often at jobs we dislike, to earn money to buy things we think will impress other people. But those other people are, by and large, not impressed by us. They are too busy using our possessions as a benchmark for their own desires. The admiration we crave is an illusion, a fleeting projection that we can never truly capture. It's like chasing a rainbow. The paradox reveals the fundamental futility of trying to gain respect through material goods. No one is as impressed with your stuff as you are. They are all caught up in their own internal monologues, just as you are. They are thinking about their own goals, their own insecurities, and what they need to do to get to the next level. Your new luxury SUV might get a fleeting glance, but it won't fundamentally change how anyone thinks about you as a person. So, what should we do? The lesson isn't that you should never own nice things. The lesson is to be brutally honest with yourself about why you want them. If you are buying something because you genuinely appreciate its craftsmanship, utility, or beauty, that's one thing. But if you are buying it primarily as a tool to gain the admiration of others, you are paying a very high price for something that will never be delivered. True respect, the kind that lasts, is not earned through what you own. It's earned through your character, your kindness, your humility, your integrity, and your willingness to help others. These qualities are far more scarce and valuable than any luxury good. The next time you feel the pull to purchase a status symbol, pause and ask yourself, am I buying this for myself, or am I buying it for an imaginary audience? Letting go of the need for external validation is one of the most powerful steps you can take toward financial and personal freedom. It allows you to align your spending with your own values, not with the perceived expectations of a world that isn't watching as closely as you think. Chapter 9. Wealth is what you don't see. In an age of social media, our perception of wealth is dangerously skewed. We are bombarded with a constant parade of curated success. The exotic vacations, the designer wardrobes, the sprawling mansions. It's easy to equate this visible spending with wealth, but Housel offers a revolutionary counterpoint that is the bedrock of financial wisdom. Rich is what you see. Wealth is what you don't. Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. The person driving a $100,000 car might be rich. They might have a high income that allows them to make the monthly payments, but they are not necessarily wealthy. For all we know, they could be one paycheck away from disaster. Their net worth could be zero or even negative. The car tells you about their spending, but it tells you nothing about their savings or investments. True wealth is invisible. It's the money that wasn't spent on the car. It's the money that was instead invested in a portfolio of stocks and bonds, quietly compounding in the background. It's the paid-off mortgage. It's the cash reserve that provide a bedrock of security. Wealth is the financial assets that haven't yet been converted into the stuff you see. Its value lies in what it can do for you in the future. Provide freedom, options, and the ability to weather any storm. We have a natural tendency to learn by imitation. But when it comes to money, this is a trap. We can see the spending of others, so we try to imitate it. We can't see their savings, their brokerage statements, or their debt levels, so we don't even think to imitate those. We are trying to emulate a half story, and it's always the wrong half. The world is full of people who look modest but are secretly wealthy, and people who look wealthy but are living on the razor's edge of insolvency. Singer Rihanna nearly went bankrupt after overspending and was told by her financial advisor, "Was it really necessary to tell you that if you spend money on things, you will end up with the things and not the money?" It's a comically simple statement, but it contains a profound truth. When you see someone with a lot of things, you are looking at the absence of wealth, not the presence of it. This understanding should change how you view both your own finances and those of others. Stop using external displays as a measure of success. The janitor Ronald Reed, who secretly amassed an $8 million fortune by living frugally and investing his modest savings for decades, was far wealthier than the high-flying executive who leased a new luxury car every year and had nothing to show for it but debt. The next time you feel a pang of envy seeing someone else's lavish lifestyle, remember that you are only seeing their riches. You have no idea about their wealth. The most powerful financial strategy is to build your own invisible fortress of wealth. Focus on the gap between what you earn and what you spend. Make that gap as wide as possible and invest the difference. This process is quiet. It's not glamorous. It won't get you any likes on Instagram, but it is the only path to genuine, lasting financial security. Chapter 10. Save money. In the vast and complex world of personal finance, we are obsessed with finding an edge. We hunt for the hottest stocks, debate the perfect asset allocation, and search for sophisticated strategies to boost our returns. But Housel argues that we are often overlooking the single most powerful and controllable factor in our financial success: our savings rate. Building wealth has surprisingly little to do with your income or your investment returns, and almost everything to do with how much you save. This is a simple but revolutionary idea. Your savings rate is the percentage of your income that you put away for the future. It's the gap between your ego and your income. And unlike investment returns or the global economy, it is entirely within your control. Someone who earns $50,000 a year and saves 20% of it, $10,000, is on a far better path to wealth than someone who earns $50,000 and saves only 5%, $7,500. The first person is building wealth more effectively, despite having a much lower income. The power of your savings rate is twofold. First, it is a direct driver of your wealth. Every dollar you save is a dollar added to your future net worth. The higher your savings rate, the faster you accumulate capital. It's simple math. But the second effect is more subtle and even more powerful. A high savings rate means you are learning to live happily on less money. This means you need less money to fund your retirement and achieve financial independence. You are attacking the problem from both ends. You are building your assets faster while simultaneously lowering the amount of assets you'll need. This is the financial equivalent of a superpower. We often believe that the only way to save more is to earn more. While a higher income certainly helps, it is not a prerequisite. You can build wealth on a modest income if you have a high savings rate. Conversely, a high income is no guarantee of wealth if it's accompanied by lifestyle inflation, where your spending rises to meet or exceed your earnings. The world is full of doctors and lawyers who earn huge salaries but have shockingly low net worths because they never learned to control their spending. So how do you increase your savings rate? It begins with a mindset shift. Saving is not a punishment or a deprivation. It is the purchase of your future freedom. You are not giving up a dinner out. You are buying an hour of your life back from your future employer. You don't need a specific reason to save. You don't need to be saving for a house or for a car. You can and should save for a future that is inherently unpredictable. Save for the opportunities you can't yet see and the emergencies you can't predict. The flexibility and security that a pile of unearmarked savings provides is one of the greatest assets you can ever own. Stop spending so much time looking for the perfect investment. Instead, turn your focus inward. Look at your budget. Where can you widen the gap? Even small increases in your savings rate, when applied consistently over many years, will have a more profound impact on your financial life than almost any investment strategy you could ever discover. Chapter 11. Reasonable, greater than rational. In the pristine world of economic theory, humans are rational beings. We are expected to make financial decisions based on cold, hard data, always choosing the path that mathematically maximizes our returns. But Morgan Housel makes a vital observation. In the real world, we are not spreadsheets. We are emotional, messy, and complicated creatures. And for that reason, being reasonable is a far better goal than being rational. What's the difference? A rational decision is one that is optimal on paper. For example, a rational analysis might show that investing 100% of your money in stocks has historically provided the best long-term returns. Therefore, the rational thing to do is to put all your money in the stock market. A reasonable decision, however, takes human emotion into account. It acknowledges that while a 100% stock portfolio might be mathematically optimal, the terrifying volatility could cause you to panic and sell everything at the bottom of a market crash. The fear and anxiety would be unbearable. A more reasonable approach might be to hold 80% in stocks and 20% in bonds. This portfolio might have slightly lower expected returns on paper, but if the stability of the bonds helps you sleep at night and stick with your plan during turbulent times, it is infinitely superior. The best financial plan is not the one with the highest potential returns, it's the one you can actually stick with. Adherence is more important than intelligence. A strategy that is 90% optimal, but that you can follow consistently for decades, will produce far better results than a 100% optimal strategy that you abandon at the first sign of trouble. This concept extends to all areas of finance. Consider paying off your mortgage. A purely rational analysis might suggest that you shouldn't pay it off early if your mortgage interest rate is lower than the expected return of the stock market. You'd be better off investing the extra money. But this ignores the profound psychological benefit of being debt-free. The peace of mind that comes from owning your home outright, with no payments hanging over your head, might be worth far more to you than the potential extra investment gains. If paying off your mortgage helps you feel secure and happy, it is a perfectly reasonable and therefore excellent financial decision. We need to stop judging our financial choices by the standards of a robot. We are humans. We have fears, hopes, and regrets. A good financial strategy doesn't pretend these emotions don't exist. It works with them. It's about finding a balance that works for you, your personality, and your tolerance for stress. So, when you are designing your financial life, don't just ask, what is the most rational thing to do? Ask yourself, what is a reasonable strategy that I can live with for a very long time, through good times and bad? This might mean saving more in cash than is technically efficient. It might mean choosing simpler investments over more complex ones. It's not about being suboptimal. It's about being realistic. In the long run, the person who can endure the marathon will always beat the person who sprints and then collapses. Be reasonable, not rational. Your future self will thank you. Chapter 12. Surprise! History is a fascinating guide to the future, but it is not a map. It can teach us about patterns and probabilities, but it can never predict the specific events that will shape our world. Housel's 12th lesson is a humbling reminder of our limitations. The most important economic and financial events of the future, the ones that will have the biggest impact on your wealth, will be things we cannot see coming. They will be surprises. Think about the major events of the last few decades: the fall of the Soviet Union, the rise of the internet, the 9/11 attacks, the 2008 financial crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic. How many experts accurately predicted the timing and impact of these events in advance? Virtually none. These were structural breaks, game-changing surprises that rendered previous models and forecasts obsolete overnight. History is a continuous chain of unforeseen events. The problem is that we have a deep-seated need for certainty. We look to financial analysts and economic forecasters to tell us what is going to happen next. We want them to predict the next recession, the next bull market, the next breakthrough technology. But this is a fool's errand. As the physicist Niels Bohr famously said, prediction is very difficult, especially if it's about the future. Investors who rely on forecasts are setting themselves up for failure. They are building a strategy based on a single, specific vision of the future. When that vision inevitably proves wrong, their strategy collapses. For example, in the late 1990s, the dot-com boom was seen as the future. Many people invested their entire life savings in technology stocks, believing they couldn't lose. When the bubble burst in 2000, they were wiped out. They had mistaken a temporary trend for a permanent law of the universe. So, if we can't predict the future, what should we do? Housel's answer is that adaptability is a more valuable skill than prediction. Instead of trying to build a perfect plan for a single outcome, you should build a resilient plan that can survive a wide range of outcomes. Don't try to guess what the market will do next week or next year. Instead, acknowledge that you have no idea what it will do and prepare accordingly. This means embracing diversification. It means not putting all your eggs in one basket, whether that basket is a single stock, a single industry, or a single country. It means always maintaining a margin of safety, a buffer of cash or safe assets that can help you survive unexpected shocks without being forced to sell your long-term investments. It means focusing on timeless principles, like living below your means and investing consistently, that work well in almost any economic environment. The most successful investors are not the ones who can predict the rain. They are the ones who have built an ark. They understand that the future will be full of surprises, both positive and negative. Their goal isn't to avoid the surprises, but to be positioned to survive the bad ones and capitalize on the good ones. Embrace uncertainty. Accept that you don't know what the future holds. This isn't a sign of weakness. It's the highest form of financial wisdom. Build a strategy that is robust enough to handle the surprises that are inevitably coming your way. Chapter 13. Room for error. In fields like engineering, redundancy is a core principle. A bridge is built to withstand forces far greater than any it is expected to encounter. An airplane has backup systems for its backup systems. This margin of safety is an explicit acknowledgement that things can and do go wrong. Housel argues that we must apply this same life-saving logic to our personal finances. The most intelligent and practical strategy for navigating an uncertain future is to build in room for error. A financial plan that requires everything to go perfectly is not a plan. It's a gamble. It's a fragile house of cards that will collapse at the first gust of wind. Life is not predictable. You will face unexpected job losses, medical emergencies, market crashes, and 1,000 other challenges you can't foresee. A plan that doesn't account for these realities is destined to fail. Room for error, or margin of safety, is the gap between what you expect to happen and what can happen without leading to ruin. It's a buffer that protects you from the consequences of being wrong. In investing, this might mean buying a stock for less than its estimated intrinsic value. The discount provides a cushion, even if your analysis is a bit off or if the company faces unexpected headwinds. You are less likely to lose money. But the concept is much broader than just stock picking. It applies to every aspect of your financial life. In your savings, having a generous emergency fund is a margin of safety. It means a surprise car repair doesn't have to become a credit card debt crisis. In your budget, living well below your means is a margin of safety. It gives you flexibility if your income drops or your expenses rise. In your retirement plan, aiming to save more than you think you'll need is a margin of safety. It protects you against lower than expected investment returns or higher than expected healthcare costs. In your timeline, planning to retire at 65, but being financially prepared to do so at 60 is a margin of safety. It gives you options if your health declines or you simply grow tired of your job. The key is to avoid single points of failure. If your entire financial well-being depends on your job, you are fragile. If it depends on the performance of a single investment, you are fragile. If it depends on the housing market never going down, you are fragile. A margin of safety is about building resilience. It's about diversifying your income streams, your investments, and your expectations. This mindset might seem overly cautious or pessimistic. It's not. It's optimistic about the long term, but realistic about the short term. It's the recognition that volatility and setbacks are a normal part of the journey. Room for error allows you to endure that volatility without being forced to abandon your long-term plan. It lets you stay in the game. And as we've learned, staying in the game is everything. Don't build your financial life on a foundation of precise forecasts and best-case scenarios. Build it on a foundation of humility. Assume you will be wrong. Assume the future will be messy. Then, create a plan with enough breathing room to survive those realities. That is the secret to sleeping well at night, no matter what the world throws at you. Chapter 14. You'll change. One of the greatest challenges in long-term financial planning is a simple, unavoidable fact. The person you are today is not the person you will be in the future. We tend to view our future selves as static, with the same goals, desires, and values that we hold right now. But as Housel points out, this end-of-history illusion is a dangerous trap. People change, and your financial plan needs to be flexible enough to change with you. Think back to who you were 10 years ago. What were your career ambitions? What did you want out of life? For many of us, the answers would be vastly different from what they are today. We evolve. Our priorities shift as we experience new things, build relationships, and learn more about ourselves and the world. The dream of a fast-paced city life in your 20s might be replaced by a desire for a quiet suburban home in your 30s. The goal of climbing the corporate ladder might give way to a passion for starting your own business. The problem is that we often create rigid, decades-long financial plans based on the desires of our current selves. We might commit to a 30-year mortgage for a house that our future self will despise, or pour all our savings into a retirement plan with a single-minded goal of leaving the workforce at 50, only to discover at 49 that we actually love our work and want to continue. When we lock ourselves into inflexible plans, we create a conflict with our future selves. We risk either abandoning the plan altogether, feeling like a failure, or sticking with a plan that no longer makes us happy, leading to a life of regret. The solution is not to stop planning for the long term. It is to avoid the extremes. Instead of making an irreversible all-or-nothing decision, look for a balanced approach that keeps your options open. Instead of sinking every penny into a massive dream house, consider a more modest home that won't trap you financially if your priorities change. Instead of focusing 100% on maximizing your retirement savings at the expense of all present enjoyment, find a balance. Save diligently, but also invest in experiences and skills now that will enrich the person you are becoming. Avoid career paths that have high financial rewards but offer no flexibility or work-life balance, as they can become golden handcuffs that you'll resent later. The key is to value flexibility. A financial plan should not be a set of rigid instructions. It should be a framework that can adapt. This is another reason why a healthy savings rate and a comfortable cash cushion are so important. They are not just for emergencies. They're for life changes. That money gives you the freedom to pivot, to change careers, to move to a new city, to take a sabbatical, without causing a financial catastrophe. Except that you don't know exactly what your future self will want. Therefore, the goal of your financial plan should not be to perfectly fund a single predetermined outcome. It should be to build a foundation of financial strength and flexibility that will allow your future self, whoever they may be, to pursue whatever goals they find meaningful at that time. Plan for evolution. Chapter 15. Nothing's free. In almost every transaction, the price of an item is clearly labeled. You know exactly what a cup of coffee or a new shirt will cost you. But in the world of investing, the price is often hidden. It's not listed on any sticker or receipt. And as Housel explains, the failure to recognize and pay this price is the source of countless financial mistakes. Every investment has a cost, and that cost is not paid in dollars and cents. It is paid in volatility, fear, uncertainty, and regret. Think of the stock market. Its long-term returns have been phenomenal, consistently outperforming almost every other asset class. That's the reward. But that reward isn't free. The price of admission to those long-term gains is the willingness to endure a relentless barrage of short-term volatility. It's the price of watching your portfolio drop 30% in a month and not panicking. It's the price of dealing with years of stagnant growth while wondering if you've made a terrible mistake. Many investors try to get the reward without paying the price. They want the high returns of stocks, but they aren't willing to tolerate the downturns. So, they try to time the market. They jump in when things are going up and try to jump out right before a crash. This is like trying to steal a meal from a restaurant. You might get away with it once or twice, but eventually you're going to get caught. By trying to avoid the price, you almost always end up with a worse outcome, buying high and selling low. The key is to view volatility not as a fine or a penalty, but as the fee you pay for long-term returns. When you see it as a fee, your mindset changes completely. You don't get angry when you have to pay for a product you want. You accept it as part of the transaction. Similarly, when the market drops, you shouldn't see it as a sign that something is wrong. You should see it as the normal, predictable cost of building long-term wealth. You are paying the fee. This principle applies everywhere. The price of a high-growth startup investment, the near certainty that most of your investments will go to zero. The price of holding cash, the gradual erosion of your purchasing power due to inflation. The price of a successful, long-lasting career, years of hard work, stress, and dealing with difficult colleagues or clients. There is no free lunch. Every benefit has a cost, even if that cost is invisible. The trick is to identify the price, decide if you are willing to pay it, and then pay it without complaint. If you aren't willing to endure the volatility of stocks, then you don't deserve the returns. If you aren't willing to put in the long hours, you might not achieve the career success you desire. Before you make any financial commitment, ask yourself, what is the price of this strategy? And am I willing and able to pay it? Be honest. If the emotional toll of a volatile investment is going to cause you sleepless nights and lead to bad decisions, then it's too expensive for you, no matter how good the potential returns look on paper. Find a strategy whose price you can comfortably afford to pay, year in and year out. That is the only sustainable path to success. Chapter 16. You and Me. In our search for financial guidance, we are often drawn to the stories of successful investors. We read about Warren Buffett's strategies, listen to hedge fund managers on TV, and take stock tips from our successful friends. The implicit assumption is that if a strategy worked for them, it will work for us. But Housel delivers a crucial warning. Be careful who you take financial advice from, because we are all playing different games. An investment strategy that is brilliant for one person can be disastrous for another. This is because our financial decisions should not be made in a vacuum. They are deeply personal and depend entirely on our unique circumstances, goals, time horizon, and risk tolerance. Consider the difference between a 25-year-old just starting their career and a 65-year-old on the verge of retirement. The 25-year-old has a time horizon of several decades. They can afford to take on significant risk, investing heavily in volatile growth stocks, because they have plenty of time to recover from any downturns. For them, a 50% market crash is a massive buying opportunity. For the 65-year-old, that same crash could be catastrophic. They need their capital to live on now, and they don't have decades to wait for a recovery. A conservative portfolio of bonds and dividend stocks might be a much more appropriate choice for them. They're playing different games. Or think about the difference between a billionaire hedge fund manager and a middle-class parent saving for their child's education. The hedge fund manager might be making short-term trades, using leverage and complex derivatives. Their goal might be to outperform a benchmark by a few percentage points this quarter. That is their game. The parent's game is completely different. Their goal is to have a specific amount of money available in 15 years. They need reliability and steady growth, not short-term speculative gains. Taking advice from the hedge fund manager would be like a marathon runner taking race day tips from a 100-meter sprinter. The advice might be excellent, but it's for a completely different sport. The danger is that we often take financial cues from people whose goals and resources are wildly different from our own. We see a day trader on social media bragging about their gains in a risky tech stock and feel the temptation to follow them, without considering that they might have a much higher risk tolerance, or be playing with money they can afford to lose. This is a recipe for disaster. The most important step in developing a sound financial strategy is to define your own game. Ask yourself, what is my time horizon? When will I need this money? What is my personal tolerance for risk? How would I feel if my portfolio dropped by 30%? 1. Christian, what are my financial goals? Retirement, a down payment, financial independence? Once you have a clear understanding of your own game, you can filter all financial advice through that lens. Ignore the noise. Ignore the hot tips and the latest trends. Focus on creating a strategy that is perfectly tailored to your unique situation. There is no one-size-fits-all solution in finance. The only right answer is the one that works for you. Play your own game. Chapter 17. The Seduction of Pessimism. In the marketplace of ideas, optimism and pessimism are not treated equally. Optimism often sounds like a naive sales pitch, while pessimism sounds like wisdom. A person who predicts a bright future is often dismissed as a Pollyanna, but a person who predicts doom and gloom is seen as a sharp, insightful analyst who is brave enough to tell the hard truth. Housel argues that this seduction of pessimism is a dangerous psychological trap that can lead us to make poor long-term decisions. Why is pessimism so alluring? There are several reasons. First, bad news travels faster and commands more attention than good news. The human brain is wired to be highly attuned to threats. A headline about a potential market crash is far more compelling than a story about slow, steady economic growth. Fear is a powerful motivator. Second, pessimism feels intellectually sophisticated because it acknowledges the existence of problems, which is always a safe bet. The world is full of challenges and risks. Pointing them out makes you seem grounded in reality. Optimism, on the other hand, requires a leap of faith. It requires you to believe that solutions will be found and that progress will continue, even in the face of obstacles. This can sound simplistic or even delusional. Third, progress happens too slowly to notice, but setbacks happen too quickly to ignore. A stock market can lose half its value in a matter of months, a shocking and memorable event. But the process of it doubling in value can take many years of quiet, incremental gains that never make the evening news. We are more likely to remember and be influenced by the sudden, dramatic, negative events. The problem is that while pessimism is tempting, it is often a poor guide to long-term outcomes. The history of the last century is a relentless story of progress and growth, punctuated by periodic, terrifying setbacks. We have endured 2 world wars, a Great Depression, pandemics, financial crises, and countless recessions. And yet, the standard of living has increased dramatically. Technology has advanced in ways our ancestors couldn't have imagined, and the stock market has trended relentlessly upward over the long run. The rational viewpoint is not blind optimism, but what Housel calls realistic optimism. This is the understanding that the journey will be full of setbacks, but that the long-term trend is toward growth and improvement. It's the ability to be optimistic about the final destination, while being paranoid about the obstacles you'll face along the way. A realistic optimist expects market crashes and recessions to happen. They don't see them as a sign that the system is broken. They see them as a normal, albeit painful, part of the process, the fee for long-term returns, as we discussed earlier. For investors, this mindset is critical. If you're a perpetual pessimist, you will always find a reason not to invest. You will be paralyzed by fear, waiting for the perfect time that never comes, and you will miss out on the incredible power of long-term compounding. Recognize the allure of pessimism, but don't let it dictate your strategy. Acknowledge the risks, prepare for the setbacks, but maintain a fundamental faith in the power of human ingenuity and the long-term trajectory of progress. History shows that for those with a long time horizon, optimism is the only realism. Chapter 18. When you'll believe anything. Humans are storytelling animals. We crave narratives to make sense of a chaotic world, especially during times of crisis. And as Housel explains in this chapter, when the stakes are high and uncertainty is rampant, our desire for a good story becomes so powerful that we are willing to believe almost anything, especially if it's a story that offers comfort and a simple explanation. During a financial panic, a natural disaster, or a personal tragedy, the world suddenly feels random and out of control. This is a terrifying feeling. To combat it, we desperately search for a narrative that can restore a sense of order. We want to know why this is happening, who is to blame, and what is going to happen next. The more appealing and reassuring a story is, the less we scrutinize the facts that support it. In a crisis, the demand for comforting lies skyrockets, while the demand for uncomfortable truths plummets. Think about the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis. People were scared, angry, and confused. They wanted answers. This created a fertile ground for simplistic narratives. Stories emerged blaming the entire crisis on a handful of greedy bankers or a single flawed government policy. While these narratives contained elements of truth, they were incomplete. The real causes were a complex web of interconnected factors, from global capital flows to flawed risk models to the psychology of millions of individual homeowners. But a complex, nuanced truth is not a satisfying story. A simple story with a clear villain is much more compelling. The danger is that these appealing narratives can lead us to make terrible decisions. When we latch onto a story that promises a quick and easy solution, the market will rebound by next quarter, or this one magic investment will solve all your problems. We abandon caution and critical thinking. We become susceptible to charlatans and bad advice because they are selling the one thing we crave most: certainty. Housel's lesson is that in times of panic, the ability to remain calm and resist the pull of appealing stories is a superpower. Those who can step back, acknowledge that the situation is complex and uncertain, and focus on sound, rational principles are the ones who are most likely to navigate the crisis successfully. This requires a conscious effort to broaden your perspective. Instead of seeking out information that confirms the simple story you want to believe, actively look for disconfirming evidence. Read opinions from people you disagree with. Study history to see how similar crises have played out in the past. You will likely find that the truth is messier, more complicated, and less satisfying than the popular narrative, but it will also be a much better guide for your actions. When everyone around you is losing their head, your greatest asset is the ability to keep yours. Resist the temptation to believe in simple fictions. Embrace the uncomfortable reality of complexity and uncertainty. In a crisis, the person who can calmly say, "I don't know what's going to happen next, so I'm going to stick to my long-term plan," is the wisest person in the room. Truth and calm are your most powerful allies when the world is filled with fear and lies. Chapter 19. All together now. As we draw the diverse threads of this journey together, Housel recaps the overarching message of the psychology of money. The conclusion is both simple and profound. Financial success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill, where how you behave is far more important than what you know. You don't need to be a financial genius or master complex economic models to build lasting wealth. Instead, you need to master a few fundamental principles of human psychology and behavior. Housel distills the book's wisdom into a set of core tenets that, when practiced consistently, form the foundation of a healthy and successful financial life. First and foremost is humility. This is the starting point for all financial wisdom. It's the recognition that the world is a complex and unpredictable place. It's the understanding that you don't know everything, that luck plays a massive role in outcomes, and that the future can and will surprise you. Humility keeps you from becoming overconfident and taking reckless risks. It encourages you to build a margin of safety and to prepare for a range of possible futures, not just the one you expect. Next comes the principle of patience. Wealth is not built overnight. It is the result of years, often decades, of consistent saving and the slow, quiet magic of compounding. In a world that glorifies speed and instant results, patience is a rare and powerful advantage. It's the ability to think long-term, to ignore the short-term noise of the market, and to let your investments grow without interruption. As we've seen with Warren Buffett, the most significant returns often come at the very end of a long journey. Tied to patience is saving. Your savings rate is the most direct and controllable lever you have in your wealth-building machine. It is more reliable than investment returns and more powerful than your income. Saving consistently, even in small amounts, creates the capital that patience and compounding will later transform into a fortune. More importantly, it creates a buffer of security that gives you the freedom to navigate life's inevitable uncertainties. Wealth is built by spending less than you earn. It's as simple and as difficult as that. Finally, Housel emphasizes a long-term mindset. The biggest financial mistakes are often made when people try to apply short-term tactics to a long-term game. They chase hot stocks, panic during downturns, and constantly change their strategy based on the latest headlines. True success comes from developing a sound, reasonable strategy and having the discipline to stick with it for decades. Keep your eyes on the horizon, not on the waves at your feet. These principles, humility, patience, saving, and a long-term perspective are not secrets. They are timeless truths. They are not complex, but they are not easy. They require emotional control, discipline, and a shift in perspective. Building wealth is a lifelong emotional journey, a marathon of character, not a sprint of intellect. It's about navigating the inevitable ups and downs with a mindset that values wisdom over cleverness and endurance over speed. The numbers in your bank account are simply a reflection of these underlying behaviors. Master the behaviors, and the numbers will take care of themselves. Chapter 20. Confessions. In the final chapter, Morgan Housel takes a remarkably personal and humble turn. He steps away from being a teacher and becomes a fellow traveler, sharing his own personal financial philosophy. He makes it explicitly clear that his approach is not a prescription for others. It is not the one true way to manage money. Instead, it is a candid confession of what works for him, shaped by his own unique experiences, personality, and goals. The powerful meta-lesson of this chapter is that financial advice is not universal. The ultimate goal is to find a personal philosophy that lets you sleep at night. Housel confesses that his own approach leans heavily toward the psychological side of money. While he understands the math of optimal investing, he prioritizes peace of mind. For example, he and his wife paid off their mortgage early. He acknowledges that, on paper, this was likely a suboptimal decision. The math would suggest that they should have invested that money in the stock market, as their mortgage rate was lower than their expected investment returns. But he paid it off anyway, because the emotional return of owning his home outright, the feeling of security and independence, was more valuable to him than any potential financial return. He chose the reasonable path over the rational one. He also shares that his family lives well below their means, not out of a sense of extreme frugality, but because they value independence above all else. They save a high portion of their income, not for a specific goal like a new car, but for the goal of maintaining control over their time. This high savings rate gives them a margin of safety and the flexibility to make life choices without being constrained by money. Perhaps his most important confession is that he doesn't try to be a stock-picking genius. He invests in simple, low-cost index funds. He knows that the odds are stacked against anyone trying to beat the market over the long run, and he is not willing to let his ego convince him that he is the exception. He is content to earn the market's average return, recognizing that consistent, long-term compounding of that return is more than enough to achieve his goals. He is playing his own game, and that game is built for endurance, not for excitement. The purpose of this chapter is not to encourage you to copy Housel's specific choices. The purpose is to encourage you to engage in the same process of self-reflection. What is your personal relationship with money? What do you value most? Independence? Security? Status? Or something else? What is your personal tolerance for risk and regret? Your financial journey is yours alone. There is no perfect answer, no universal formula. Don't let anyone, not a financial advisor, not a best-selling author, not your successful neighbor, make you feel like you are doing it wrong if your strategy doesn't look like theirs. The best financial plan is the one that is tailored to your unique psychology. Take the time to understand yourself, your fears, and your aspirations. Then build a financial life that aligns with them. That is the true meaning of financial success. Money wisdom that changes you. As we reach the conclusion of this exploration into the psychology of money, the ultimate takeaway becomes crystal clear. Money is not about math, it's about mindset. The most profound financial wisdom isn't found in a formula or an investment strategy. It lies in understanding the deeply human, emotional, and often irrational relationship we have with wealth. True financial mastery is less about getting the numbers right, and more about getting your mind right. Morgan Housel's core message is a call to inner work. It's an invitation to look in the mirror and confront the stories, biases, and emotional baggage that secretly drive our financial decisions. For years, we may have been operating on autopilot, guided by beliefs about money passed down from our parents, absorbed from our culture, or forged in the fire of a single traumatic experience. Are you holding on to a scarcity mindset from a childhood of poverty? Are you driven by a desire to impress others, a need for validation that can never be satisfied by a purchase? These are the invisible scripts that run our lives. The first step to rewriting them is to become aware that they exist. This book challenges us to redefine success. We are taught to see wealth as a destination, a number in a bank account that once reached will solve all our problems. But this is a mirage. Wealth is not a destination. It's a way of traveling. It's the quiet discipline of saving, the unwavering patience of long-term thinking, and the profound humility to accept that the future is, and always will be, uncertain. The journey to financial well-being is not about finding a perfect map. No such map exists. It's about developing the skills to be a good traveler. It's about cultivating the habits and the mindset that allow you to navigate the inevitable storms and detours along the way. Can you remain calm when others are panicking? Can you delay gratification for a greater future reward? Can you find contentment with what you have, even as the world screams for you to want more? These are the real questions that determine your financial fate. This is a fundamentally optimistic message, but it is a realistic optimism. It does not promise a world without risk or a journey without setbacks. Instead, it empowers us. It tells us that while we cannot control the economy, the stock market, or the whims of fortune, we can control ourselves. We can control our spending. We can control our savings rate. We can control our reactions. We can choose to be patient. We can choose to be humble. In this, we find true power. Wealth is not just the result of a series of smart financial moves. It is the external manifestation of an internal state. It is a reflection of your character, your discipline, and your wisdom. It is the peace of mind that comes from knowing you have built a life that is resilient, free, and aligned with your deepest values. So the journey doesn't end here. It begins. Take the time for self-reflection. What beliefs about money no longer serve you? What habits are holding you back? This is the most valuable financial work you can ever do. Because in the end, wealth isn't something you have. It's something you become. 5 simple rules to master money psychology. The wisdom in the psychology of money is profound, but it's most powerful when put into practice. To help you translate these ideas into action, here are 5 simple, actionable rules that will help you master your money psychology and build a life of financial security and freedom. 1. Define your enough. The most dangerous financial game is the one with no finish line. Before you chase more, you must define what enough means to you. Is it a specific net worth? The ability to live without a mortgage? Or is it a feeling? The peace of mind that comes from knowing you can handle any emergency. Take the time to write down your definition of enough. Make it concrete. This act alone will protect you from the endless cycle of social comparison and lifestyle inflation. Knowing you're enough is the only way to get off the hamster wheel and truly enjoy the wealth you build. 2. Save like a pessimist, invest like an optimist. This rule creates a powerful balance. Save like a pessimist means you should always assume the future will be full of unexpected and expensive surprises. Build a robust emergency fund. Save more than you think you'll need for your goals. This creates a margin of safety that protects you from life's inevitable chaos. Invest like an optimist means you should have long-term faith in the power of markets and human ingenuity. Once your safety net is secure, invest your long-term money with confidence, knowing that over decades, the trend is toward growth. This dual mindset makes you resilient enough to survive the short-term storms and patient enough to capture the long-term rewards. 3. Maximize your time horizon, not your short-term returns. The most powerful variable in the compounding equation is not the rate of return, it's the length of time. Your greatest financial asset is your time horizon. Instead of trying to find investments that will double your money overnight, a strategy that usually leads to ruin, focus on finding a sensible, diversified investment strategy that you can stick with for as long as possible. The goal is not to time the market, it's to maximize your time in the market. The longer you stay invested, the more the magic of compounding can work in your favor. Think in decades, not days. 4. Use money to buy control, not to buy status. The true purpose of wealth is to gain ownership over your own life. Before making any significant purchase, ask yourself a simple question. Is this buying me more freedom or less? A bigger house with a bigger mortgage might reduce your freedom by locking you into a high-pressure job. A reliable, paid-for car increases your freedom. Prioritize using your money to buy back your time. This could mean building up enough savings to take a lower-paying but more meaningful job, or having the ability to retire when you choose. Control over your time is the real dividend that wealth pays. 5. Be reasonable, not rational. The theoretically perfect financial plan is useless if you can't stick with it. Don't build a strategy that requires you to be a robot. Build one that acknowledges your humanity. If a 100% stock portfolio will give you panic attacks during a downturn, it's a bad plan for you, even if the math says it's optimal. Choose a strategy that fits your emotional temperament and lets you sleep at night. A reasonable plan that you can follow consistently will always outperform a rational plan that you abandon in fear. By integrating these 5 rules into your life, you will move beyond the numbers and begin to master the true art of money. Managing your own behavior.
A personal reflection.
As we close this journey, I want to leave you with one final, liberating thought. You do not need to be a genius to be wealthy. You don't need to have an MBA. You don't need to understand complex financial instruments. And you certainly don't need to make bold, risky bets. Wealth isn't a measure of your intelligence. It's a measure of your character. It's about being patient when others are greedy. It's about being calm when others are panicking. It's about being wise enough to know that the game is long and that consistency beats intensity. And that, my friend, is something we can all choose.
Money is not a race. It is a marathon. The winner isn't the person who runs the fastest in the first mile, but the one who keeps a steady pace for the entire 26.2. The principles we've discussed are simple, but they are not easy. They require a conscious choice, day after day, to prioritize the long term over the short term, to value freedom over status, and to embrace humility in a world that rewards ego. Now, the question turns to you. After hearing these lessons, what is the one thing you will do differently, starting tomorrow? Will you sit down and finally define your enough? Will you automate an increase to your savings rate? Or will you simply commit to looking at your investments less often, giving them the time they need to grow? Reflect on the principle that resonated with you most deeply, and think of one small, concrete action you can take to bring it to life. Remember, building wealth is not about making one perfect decision. It's about making thousands of good enough decisions, consistently, over a lifetime. Patience, calm, and wisdom are the only tools you truly need. You have the power to change your financial future, not by outsmarting the market, but by mastering yourself. The choice is in your hands. Choose wisely. If you found this exploration helpful, please consider liking this video, sharing it with someone who might benefit, and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into life-changing ideas. Your support helps us grow and reach more people. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below.